Let us salute the greatest nation. Let us remember those bravest souls whose contribution has given us the opportunity to survive in a free nation. We are celebrating the Independence Day of one of the greatest nation of the world, and we are really proud to be Indians. Happy Independence Day to all of you, to all the Indians and to the greater humanity. Okay, so as usual we will continue the classes, but before that I want to just recall that this 15th August, why it has become the red letter day, rather we say, and in 1947, one of the most important year in the life of every Indian, that we have got the independence, and the lives of millions who has suffered a lot for a long period of time, and the result is the independent nation. So we are celebrating the Independence Day of such a great nation. We have discussed earlier some chapters from here, from our social and political life. Today we will be discussing about third chapter, that is, why do we need a parliament? But before that, certain basic concept should be very clear, because I have seen sometimes some basic concepts are not very clear to the students, and that's why they suffer to understand other important matters. So the basic things first. Say for example, I think one question is very common to be asked, that which is the central legislature of India? I asked this question in the class last year, but all could not answer this question. But many of you know, I hope, that it is the parliament. Then I thought, what is the problem that some students do not know the answer of this question, that which is the central legislature of India? I thought the term legislature may not be very clear to those students. So let us begin with the basic concept. What we are discussing here today, we are starting the discussion with the organs of a government, because the basic concept is important here. So what are the major three organs of a government, of a democratic government? Many of you know the answer. The organs are legislative, executive and the judiciary. Hope you have heard the terms. And what are the functions of these organs? These are also very clear by this time, as you are in class 8. So these terms you should be well acquainted with. So the first organ comes here, the legislative body. We are discussing about the legislative body, legislature. As I asked you the first question, which is the central legislature of India? Law-making body, central law-making body of India, that is the parliament, or it is also called Samsad. So the legislative comes first, the first organ it is considered. What is the major function? We will discuss in detail today in our class, of course, about the functions of the legislative body. Some three important functions of the legislative body is to select the central executive, the national executive. And the second important function of the legislative body is to control, guide, to inform the government. That is the second important responsibility of the legislative body. And the third important function is to make laws. So these are the core topics we shall discuss today. But before that, as I told, the basic matters, because we need to know what are the main three organs of a democratic government. So first one we have seen, the legislative body, and the second one comes the executive body. Which is the executive body? Executive body is the organ of the government which performs, which is directly involved in the everyday administration according to the rules made by the legislative body. That is the executive body, okay, for implementation of rules, laws which are written in the constitution, which are formed by the legislative body, that is called the executive body. Here also maybe one small question, a short question is important. What is that? It may be asked, who is the highest executive in our country? Even some students failed to answer this question, who is the highest executive? Yes, of course, there are various types of executives are there in our country. One may be political executive, some may be non-political executive. Sometimes it is called who is the real executive and who is the nominal executive. So all these classifications should be very clear now onwards. So if we ask generally who is the highest executive of our country, of course we should say the President of India is the highest executive. I think now you can get the idea that how the executive body works according to the instructions, according to the rules made by the legislative body. Then the third organ of the government comes, the judiciary. Judiciary, which organ we are talking about? Of course, the High Court, Supreme Court, then Subdivisional Magistrate Court, then there are other Nyaya Panchayat. All the judiciary matters are handled by these courts. Whenever we commit any kind of crime, disobey law, or any mistake done by the executive body or the legislative body, judiciary is there to look after the matter. No means of insultation should be done to the highest law of the land, that is the Constitution. Constitution must be given due respect because this is the highest law of the land. So judiciary body is the protector, guardian of the Constitution. So these are the basic three organs of a democratic government which should be cleared at the beginning. Now let us see, there are various forms of government. What are the various forms of government? We have discussed here the organs of government, the basic three organs of government of a democratic government, that is legislative body, executive body and the judiciary. Now we shall see what are the different forms of government which are running around the world. Different countries implement, different countries follow different administrative system in their country. Say for example, if we discuss about this, there is parliamentary form of government. Say for example, in our country, in India, we have adopted the parliamentary form of government. The question is, the title of the chapter is, why do we need a parliament? See, it is very relevant. We need to know first why we have adopted the parliamentary form in our country. Because there are other forms also. Say for example, presidential form of government. The other forms of government are there around the world. Presidential form of government is there. Say for example, USA is one of the best example where presidential form of government is in practice. Whereas in our country, we have adopted the parliamentary administrative system. There are other kinds of classification regarding the running of administration. Say federal system of government. Federal. What does the term federal mean? I hope you have got the term. Federal means where there is more than one level of government. Say for example, let us take the example of our country. In New Delhi, there is central government, and in every state, in all the union territories, there are regional governments. In every state, there is state government. So, clearly we can see there are two levels of government. One is the central government in New Delhi, which looks after the overall administration around the country, and there is state government in each and every state. So, definitely there are two levels. It is clearly visible that there are two levels of government, but they run in coordination. So that is called the federal system of government. There is other type of government. It is called unitary form of government, when there is basically only one level of government, and there may be some regional governments, but those are not given proper authority, proper power, absolute power is not given. So in that sense we can say some countries follow the unitary system of government. So we have seen different forms of government. If we classify on the basis of running administration, that is, who actually it is run by a single executive or many executives. Say for example the parliamentary form and the presidential form. Then there are other types of other two classifications we have seen. What are those? That is federal system of government and unitary system of government. Now the question comes, why we have adopted the parliamentary form of government in our country? That is the important question here. Before we start discussing about the importance of the parliament, let us know why we have adopted the parliamentary form of government in our country. Because our nation builders, our leaders thought that the parliamentary form will be more democratic. Instead of choosing a single executive, let the representatives from various parts of the nation come together, assemble together, sit together to decide for the nation. That's why parliamentary form of government is adopted. Let me tell you one thing. Some countries which got the independence almost in the contemporary period of the Indian independence, they did not go through certain tough methods of administration. Means they did not opt for the true sense of democratic system. In some countries they continued with single parties rule or by the army rule. Next year in class 9 you will study about this, that how in Pakistan Parvez Musharraf, during the rule of Parvez Musharraf, army rule was running over there. Then in some countries only single party dominates the total administrative system, or in some places one dictator, a single ruler, a single individual ruler runs the total administration by dominating over the people. But these are quite easier way to run the administration. But our leaders did not accept those easier policies, because they thought that politics is not a problem, politics is rather a solution, and they were confident enough about the selection of the people. The people of the country, where they were under ruled by a foreign ruler for around 200 years, so they realized what type of ruler they want. So they were confident enough about the selection of the people. They realized that yes, our people, there may be poor, they may be illiterate, there may be various kinds of divisions, diversities in our country, but they are aware about their leaders. They are quite sure that they will choose the administrators in a proper manner, and that's why the parliamentary form was opted. Now let us see, as we are talking about, our leaders after the independence had enough faith in the people's decision. So here comes that why should people decide? Important question here comes, why should people decide in a democracy? As I told you that our freedom struggle was around 200 years. For a long period of time, the total nation was suffered, brutally tortured, various types of discrimination faced by our forefathers. As we are celebrating the Independence Day, this is the day to show our gratitude to those bravest souls whose contribution has given us the opportunity to survive in an independent nation. And that's why the decision was taken that yes, people will decide. It must not be run by a single individual, it must not be run by army rule or any easier method. Let the people decide. So people had the experience of long and difficult, troublesome freedom struggle. People had the experience of those situations, how they suffered under the British rule. And the leaders were confident enough about the choice of the people. That is the reason that yes, people should decide, people should get the opportunity to choose their leaders. In the year 1885, when Indian National Congress was formed, Indian National Congress is a political party which organized the freedom movement in a proper manner, in a particular direction, and some eminent leaders were there who were able to organize, unite the people, though they belonged to various communities, religion, caste and all. So, in the year 1885, when Indian National Congress was formed, they demanded for the involvement of Indians in the British administration. But hardly their demand was followed. From 1885 to 1905, this period, hope you are studying in history these matters. You see, this civics and history, they are interrelated actually. So, from 1885 to 1905, it was the period called the period of prayer and petition. They demanded that some Indians should be engaged in the administrative policies, in the administration, because the Indians are being ruled. So, if any Indian representative is not there, then how come they will know about the problem of the Indians? So, let some of the Indians be included in the administrative system. That was the demand. Then in 1909, 1909, Government of India Act was passed, where some of the representatives of our country were being chosen in the administrative system. But those were not enough. People were not satisfied. Our leaders were not satisfied that only few people, if taken in the administrative system, then it is not the proper representation. Then later on the demand increased. You know, there was demand for Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence, and gradually the demand was increasing more and more, and definitely ultimately we have got the complete freedom on 15th August 1947. All of you know this one. Okay, so from 1885 onwards, there was greater demand for inclusion of Indians in the administrative policies, in the administration, but hardly those voices were heard. No importance was given to those matters. So definitely there was more demand as people are suffering. How long people could be suppressed? How long people could suffer the torture? That's why in the year 1909, under Government of India Act, a group of people, few, were included in the administrative system, but those were not enough. As I told you, they were not satisfied with the inclusion of only few representatives from our country. Okay? And as I told you, the nationalist leaders have complete faith in the choice of the people. They realized that the people of our country, as they suffered for a long period of time, the long struggle, long independent struggle, have given them the realization that how the executive should be. So they could easily, they could confidently choose the leaders of the nation, rulers of the nation by means of election. Okay, we are coming to that point. Okay, we shall see now what is the role of the parliament. Okay, we shall see now the role of the parliament now. What are the important responsibilities performed by the parliament in our country? So here you can write down one short question, that which is the central legislature of our country? Okay, as I told you that some students failed to answer this question, but now you can understand the central legislature of India is called the parliament or Samsad, isn't it? So we shall see now the role of the parliament. What are the important responsibilities performed by the parliament in our country. The first one is to select the national government. To select the national government. Now the question is, how the national government is selected? Yes, of course, by means of election. What is election? Election is nothing but the selection of the representatives, isn't it? People choose their representative by means of universal adult franchise. All of you know this system. Earlier we have discussed. Okay, so the important thing is that this conduction of election is not at all an easy job. First of all, the country should be divided into parliamentary constituencies. Division of the country into parliamentary constituency. Parliamentary constituency. What are these parliamentary constituencies? Yes, these are the political divisions of a country. Say for example, in our state there are two parliamentary constituencies. Okay, the East Tripura and the West Tripura. So like that, all over India, the whole country is divided into various parliamentary constituencies so that the representatives can be chosen in a proper manner. On the basis of the ratio of population, these divisions are done. So these constituencies are the political divisions according to which our elections are conducted. From every constituency, for every constituency, the political parties select their representatives to contest in the election. Almost every political party send their representatives from every constituency to participate in the election, to contest in the election. Now among those contesting political parties, the representatives of the political parties, one gets the majority number of vote, that is called the majority party. Okay, majority party. And this majority party, actually the leader of the majority party is called by the president to form the central government. I hope the point is clear. But before that, as I told you, conduction of election is not at all a easy job. It's a grand task. It's a huge task. It is not enough to divide the country only into political constituencies. The electoral roll or the voters list should be prepared. It's a tough job. It's a long process because every year some new voters are included, then some people die, so their names to be excluded. So accordingly, it takes long time to prepare a perfect electoral roll, and many people are being trained for the conduction of election. So it is a grand task. It's a troublesome job, the conduction of election. Whatever it is, through election, people's representatives are chosen. So we have seen the division of constituency, preparation of electoral roll, then the conduction of election. It continues for a quite long period of time. And in our country, after every 5 years, the parliamentary election conducts. Now we will see the role of the majority party. As I told you that every political party send their representatives, select their representatives for every constituency to contest in the election. Among those, one party wins the majority number of vote. Then of course that party's leader will be called by the president to form the central government. That is called selecting the national government. But as I am telling, the matter may not be so easy. Why? Because sometimes a situation may arise when the coalition government may need to form. coalition government. I hope you have heard the term. What is the meaning of coalition government? This one also can be a question from this chapter. What do you mean by the term coalition government? See, as I am telling you that one party wins the majority number of seats and the leader of that party is called by the president to form the central government. It is not that easy always. Sometimes it may happen that no single party got the majority. Then what happens? When no single party gets the majority number of votes as it is required by the parliament for forming the central government, then there may be the option for coalition government. Some political parties will join together to form the majority number of seats so that they can run the administration. They can form the central government. It happened earlier also in our country. During the period of Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he was the Prime Minister of India, the coalition government was there. So accordingly, the coalition government also runs the administration whenever there is no single party wins the majority number of seats. Now see how the situations are becoming more and more complex. So that is the thing. Now the leader of the majority party is considered as the Prime Minister of the nation. The leaders of the majority party, those who are elected by the people, they consider one as their leader. He becomes the Prime Minister of the nation. Now the other ministers, it is impossible for the single executive by the Prime Minister himself to run the total administration. Then of course he needs the help of other ministers. So he chooses, he selects the other ministers to form the ministry. That is called the cabinet ministry. I hope you got the point. So that way the central government or the national government is selected. Now here you see, here also the major role is played by the people. By means of universal adult franchise, all the adult people of the nation select their representatives through election, and those elected leaders form the national government. Now we shall see the another matter here, another important matter, that it is not that only the majority party leaders, the ministers are there in the parliament. There is another group also, that is called the opposition party. I hope you have heard the term opposition party. Who formed this opposition party? Of course you have the clear idea. The parties which could not win the majority number of seats in the parliamentary election, in the Lok Sabha election, they form the opposition party in the parliament. Now the opposition party has got some important responsibilities for the smooth running of the administration. They find out the loopholes, the problems faced by the governmental activities. So those are discussed in the parliament, and accordingly the administration runs. So the role of the opposition party for smooth conduction of the administration is also equally important. It is not only the majority party which has formed the government will run the administration properly. Of course the opposition party's role also very important here, because the more efficient the opposition party functions, accordingly it will be, the people will be benefited from that, because the government will be alert in that situation. Now we shall see the another important function of the parliament, that is to control, guide and to inform the government. Follow this term, to control, guide and to inform the government. That is also one important responsibility of the parliament. Okay. Now, how these activities are done by the parliament? We know that the parliamentary activities are called the sessions. These are called the sessions of the parliament. Actually, the parliamentary activities do not continue all through the year. There are certain periods of time when the parliamentary sessions are going on and there are important discussions take place. One important session is called the question hour. Question hour. It is one of the very important part. Actually, the session starts with the question hour. Sometimes the governmental activities, the loopholes in the governmental activities are found and those are discussed in the question hour. The government is asked for certain kind of difficulties faced by them in performance of certain activities, certain functions. So this question hour is an important part of the parliamentary sessions. There are other sessions also which we will study in the later classes. Say for example, no confidence motion can be there. No confidence motion here means the parliamentary authority, the opposition party may not be satisfied with the activities of the government. In that sense, they have to protest against the governmental activities. So that is called the no confidence motion. There are various adjournment motion, various types of activities are there, according to which the governmental activities are being looked after properly, observed, monitored, and that way the government is controlled and guided, rather we say, because it is very important to perform the parliamentary activities in proper manner for the smooth conduction of the administrative system. And inform here means how the government is informed by the parliament. It is quite simple to understand. The representatives from all over the country assemble over there in the parliament. Now they discuss about the problems faced by the people of their region. Those problems are being discussed and how to find out the solution. Those are also found out over there in the parliamentary sessions. So this way the parliament helps the government that they inform the parliamentary representatives, the representatives in the parliament, they inform the government that where what problems are there. So those problems, the solution of those problems are being discussed and on the earliest basis, okay, according to the necessities, those problems are being solved. So now you see the role of the parliament in controlling, guiding and to inform the government is very, very important and it is very essential also. Okay, now we shall see the important function of the parliament in other sense, that is law making function. As we have seen, the term itself, legislative body. Legislative body here means the formation, making of laws. So that is the important function of the parliament, making of laws. Actually, this law making also has got various aspects. Say for example, if we take the matter of Indian Constitution, till now Indian Constitution has been amended more than 100 times. What is the reason? Because it may happen that certain articles over there in the parliament, over there in the constitution has become irrelevant. It is not going with the present social or economic system. So those article has to be changed, amended. That's why the amendment of the constitution is done. Sometimes it may happen that a particular part of the article can be utilized and the rest of the part is useless. So such kind of amendments are done. Because the socio-economic system is dynamic, our society is ever changing, the political economic system is ever changing, then how come the constitution will remain static? The constitution also has to be changed. the new laws are to be formed, new rules are to be initiated, and all these activities are done in the parliament, because it cannot be done by any individual, because we are having the parliamentary system of government. So in parliamentary system of government, the discussion regarding the exclusion of laws or making of the new laws are very important. Hope you got the point. Now, how these new laws are made, let us see. Actually, as a bill, it is introduced. Whenever any law is made, initially it is introduced as a bill. As a bill, it is introduced. Initially, any minister introduces a bill in either of the houses. It may be introduced in the upper house, that is the Rajya Sabha, or maybe in the lower house, that is the Lok Sabha. In the later part we shall discuss about the composition of the parliament, but now we are discussing about making of laws. So as I am telling you that before the formation of a law, it is actually a bill. In the form of a bill, it is introduced by a minister in either of the houses, either in the upper house, that is Rajya Sabha, or in the lower house, that is called the Lok Sabha, house of the people. But one exception is there. A money bill cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. A money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. We have to remember this. So as a bill it is introduced, then discussion continues. Discussion continues on the proposed bill. Then voting is done. Voting is done on the proposed bill. On the basis of majority vote, the bill is selected. If the majority number of the people selects that bill, accepts that bill, then it goes to the other house. Say for example, one bill is introduced in the Rajya Sabha. So the members of Rajya Sabha will discuss about that bill in the house. So if the majority number of members of Rajya Sabha are satisfied or accept the bill, then it is considered that it is passed in Rajya Sabha. Then what will happen with that bill? It goes to the other house, that is in the lower house, Lok Sabha. So again the bill is being discussed over there in Lok Sabha. Again by the majority vote, if the bill is passed over there in Lok Sabha, it goes to the President for his assent, his signature, because he is the highest executive of the nation, and when President is satisfied and he puts his signature on the bill, it becomes an act and it is included in the parliament, in the constitution. Hope you got the point. So this way the new laws are being made. But as I am telling, it may not be that easy always, making of the new laws. It may happen that in one house the bill is being passed, but the other house is not satisfied, then they may send back the bill with their suggestion to the previous house. So the continuation, the discussion continues further. So sometimes it takes a long time, rather longer time, in passing of certain bills, which then ultimately becomes into an act. So hope you got the point that the three important functions of the parliament. What are the three important functions we have discussed today? The first important function of the parliament is to select the national government. How this national government is being selected by the parliament? Of course you realized, I hope so, the total country is divided into certain constituencies, parliamentary constituencies, because there is state assembly election also. So for that the division will be different. for the state assembly election, the constituencies, the division of the constituencies will be different than the parliamentary constituencies. It is quite easy to understand that the parliamentary constituencies will be much larger than the state constituencies, assembly constituencies. Hope you got the point. So first thing first, the nation is divided into various constituencies. The electoral roll, that is called the voters list, is prepared. Election takes place, but before that various political parties continue for months. Their campaign, rallies, slogans and all continues. It is like a grand festival. Elections are like grand festival in our country. Hope you have seen. So, division of the parliamentary constituencies, making of the electoral roll, selection of the representatives of each political party, these continue for a long period of time. Then the election takes place, and if one single political party wins the majority number of votes, that party's leader is called by the highest executive of our country, that is the president of our country, to form the national government. But as I told you, it may not be that easy always. It is quite possible that a single political party may not win the majority number of seats which are required to form the central government. What will happen in that case? Hope you have realized. Yes, that situation is called the formation of coalition government. The question may be asked, what do you mean by a coalition government? A coalition government is formed when a single political party do not get the desired number of seats which are necessary to form the central government. So in that case, some political parties unite together, join together, and ultimately the coalition government is formed. Hope you got the point. So that way the national government is selected by the parliament. Then there is another group of members in the parliament. The majority party or the coalition government is running. At the same time, there is another group of people in the parliament. I told you, we have discussed who are those people. They form the opposition party. And what is the role of the opposition party? This also can be a question from this chapter. Frequently this question is asked. The role of the opposition party is very important because they find out the loopholes, the drawbacks, the shortcomings of the governmental activities. And in that sense, the government remains alert. For the smooth functioning of the democracy, the role of the opposition party is very, very important. So we have seen the first and the most important function of the parliament, that is to select the national government. Secondly, we have discussed about the another important function of the parliament, that is to control, to guide and to inform the government. The question is how the parliament controls, guides or inform the government. Hope you have got the point. How this work is done by the parliament? Of course, whenever there is session, the parliamentary session continues. The parliamentary activities are called the parliamentary sessions. And parliamentary session always starts with the question hour. And this question hour is very important parliamentary activity. What happens in this question hour? The representatives in the parliament, they ask question to the governmental authority that what are the shortcomings, why there is shortcoming of the governmental activities. As I told you, there are the people who are the representatives from all over the nation. They are being elected by the people by the means of universal adult franchisee from all over the country. So those representatives represent the people's problem over there in the parliament, and those problems are being discussed in the parliament, and according to the necessities, those are being arranged, those are solved. So through question hour, the governmental authority is being asked about the shortcomings of the government. So that way the government is being controlled, guided and informed by the parliament. And in the third point we have seen the important function of the parliament, that is making of new laws. Actually the making of new laws will be discussed in the later chapter, so here not much discussion is there, but in brief we can discuss about this. As we have seen, as a bill it is introduced in the parliament. Before the formation of a law, an act, it is actually a bill which is introduced by any minister in the parliament. It may be introduced either in the upper house, that is called the Rajya Sabha, or in the lower house, that is called Lok Sabha. Hope you got the point. But one exception is there. There are two types of bills. One is called money bill and the other is called ordinary bill. We have to remember that a money bill cannot be introduced in the upper house, that is in the Rajya Sabha. A money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. Now, whenever any bill is introduced in either of the houses, discussion continue over there, and if the bill is accepted by the majority number of members of that particular house, it is sent to the other house for their consent. Again the discussion continues over there, and if the majority member of that house accepts the bill, then it goes to the president for his assent, his signature, and ultimately the bill turns into a law. It becomes an act. So these are the basic three important functions of the central legislature. So which is the central legislature? Of course the Indian Parliament. Now let us see the composition of the Indian Parliament, which is very interesting and important also. The composition of the Indian Parliament. Let us see. We are talking about the central legislature, that is the Parliament. Now we shall see how the central legislature, that is the Parliament, is composed. Here of course we have to mention the name of the highest executive, that is the President. The President of our country holds the highest position in the Parliament. Then there is the upper house of the Parliament. I told you which is the upper house of the Parliament. Of course you know, that is called the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha is called the upper house of the Parliament. How many members are there in the Rajya Sabha? Total there are 245 members in the Rajya Sabha. We have to remember that out of these 245 members, actually elected members are 233. 233 members of Rajya Sabha are elected, but we have to remember one thing, they are not directly elected by the people as happens in Lok Sabha. They are indirectly elected because they are being elected by the representatives of the people. So 233 members of the Rajya Sabha, that is the upper house of the Parliament, are indirectly elected by the people. Remember, indirectly elected by the people's representative. And what about the rest? They are nominated. Nominated members. How many nominated? 12. There are 12 nominated members in the Rajya Sabha. Now, who nominates them? The highest executive, the President. The President nominates 12 members in the upper house of the Parliament, that is the Rajya Sabha. Now, who are these people? Those who are nominated by the President? They are the eminent personalities of our nation. Say for example, Sachin Tendulkar was there, the member of Rajya Sabha. Then there are some eminent personalities like that from the world of music or sports or maybe some scientists, some eminent personalities from various fields, maybe art, literature, culture, sports, as I said. So those are the people being nominated by the highest executive, that is the President, in the Rajya Sabha. And the number is 12, because their ideas, they hold the highest position in the nation, and their concept, their thinking, their suggestions will improve that particular field. That's why they are being nominated by the President in the Rajya Sabha. So if the question is asked, how many members are nominated by the President in the Rajya Sabha? You are ready with the answer? That is 12. And how many members are indirectly elected in the Rajya Sabha? What is the answer? It is 233. And if the question is asked, what is the total number of members in the Rajya Sabha? Of course you know, 245 is the answer. Now let us see the other house of the Indian Parliament, that is called the lower house. Lower house. By this time you have already know, you have already come to know that which is the lower house of the Rajya Sabha, which is the lower house of the Parliament, that is Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha is called the lower house of the Indian Parliament, house of the people. Remember the English terms you have to know. This Rajya Sabha or upper house is also called the Council of States. Which is the Council of States of the Parliament? Rajya Sabha. It is the other name. And lower house, that is Lok Sabha, house of people. It is also called the house of people. And what is the total number of members in Lok Sabha? Of course you know. What is the total number of members? That is 545 members are there in the Lok Sabha. And these members are directly elected by the people by means of universal adult franchise. So these 545, not all the people, not all these 545 people are directly elected by the people. Actually, elected members are 543. Then what about the rest two? Two are nominated. Two nominated members are there in the lower house of the Parliament, that is Lok Sabha, again by the highest executive, the President. Hope you understood the total composition of the Parliament. Now let us see the tenure of the houses. The Rajya Sabha, the upper house, the total term is 6 years. An individual is elected or nominated, they can continue over there for 6 years. But after every 2 years, 1/3 of the members are retired from Rajya Sabha. That means it is called the permanent house of the Parliament. Rajya Sabha is also called the permanent house of the Parliament. Why? Because like Lok Sabha, it is never dissolved as a whole at a time. As I told you, only 1/3 of the members retire after every 2 years, and individually one single member continues there for 6 years. So that way Rajya Sabha becomes the permanent member of the permanent house of the Indian Parliament. This one can be a question from this chapter, that why Rajya Sabha is called the permanent house. Hope you got the point, because it is never dissolved at a time as a whole. Only 1/3 of the members retire after every 2 years. Got the point? And individually one member continues there for 6 years, means one member of Rajya Sabha's term is 6 years. Now let us see the matter of Lok Sabha. As we have seen, the total number of members in Lok Sabha is 545. Out of those 545 members, 543 are directly elected by the people by means of universal adult franchise, and 2 members are being nominated by the highest executive of the nation, that is the President. Now the question may be asked, how many members are nominated by the President in the Indian Parliament? Then what will be the answer? Of course, it will be total nominated members. Total nominated members will be 12 plus 2, that is 14. We have to remember this, that 14 members are nominated by the President in the Indian Parliament as a whole. Why? Because 12 are nominated in the Rajya Sabha and 2 are nominated in the Lok Sabha. Now individually it can be asked that how many members are nominated by the President in the upper house of the Parliament? Of course the answer will be 12. And who are these people? Those who are nominated by the President in the Rajya Sabha, they are the eminent personalities from the field of art, culture, literature, sports, music. So they are the eminent personalities of the country who are being nominated by the President in the upper house. And in Lok Sabha only 2 members are nominated by the President. And the term of Lok Sabha, of course you know, because after every 5 years parliamentary election takes place. We call it parliamentary election, actually we mean to say Lok Sabha election. Got the point? So when we say it is parliamentary election, actually we are meaning the election for the Lok Sabha, because the election for Rajya Sabha doesn't take place for the common people. They are not elected directly by the people. The members of Rajya Sabha are not directly elected by the people. Got the point? So when we say the parliamentary election, actually we mean it is the Lok Sabha election which takes place in our country after every 5 years. Hope you have got the point. So what we have discussed today, let us wind up the class today. We have discussed that why do we need a parliament? We have seen that why should people select? As our national leaders were confident enough about the people's choice, about the people's selection, that's why this parliamentary system is being adopted in our country. Then we have seen the important functions of the parliament. In short, under 3 headings we can say it is about the selection of the national government, then control, to guide and to inform the government, and third but not the last, the most important function of the parliament is to make laws. In the later chapter we shall find out in detail how the laws are made actually. This is very interesting. And finally we have seen the composition of the Indian Parliament, and here the numerical matters are very important. How many members are there in Rajya Sabha, how many are nominated. So all these matters you have to be very, very clear about. Hope you have enjoyed the class. Again I wish happy Independence Day to all of you. Thank you all.